Forget everything you know about Sparta. The abs, the honor, that this is where we fight bullshit. That's for children. Real Sparta? Real Sparta was a fist wrapped around your throat. It was a place where mercy was a birth defect, and the only thing they loved more than dying in battle was making someone else wish they had. I'm going to tell you what happened after Thermopylae. Not the battle. Everyone knows the battle. 300 men, arrows blotting out the sun. Dying in hell. Cute. Inspiring. This isn't that story. This is what happened to the women. And I promise you, you've never heard this version. Because historians don't like talking about what happens when you take a society of men raised on beatings in black blood soup, fill them with grief over their mutilated king, and then put them in a room with the soft, perfumed daughters of the empire that killed him. But they didn't put them in a room, they put them in hell. August 480 BC. Leonidas is dead. Not just dead, desecrated. His head on a spike. Xerxes had it cut off, stuck it on a pike like a fucking festival decoration. He wanted the Greeks to see it. He wanted them to break. Spartans don't break, they calcify. The news hit Sparta like a disease. Not tears. Spartans didn't weep. That's for Athenians, for soft men who wrote poetry and washed their asses. No, the response was something worse. It was a sound. A low vibration that started in the gut of every man who heard the news and spread outward until the whole city hummed with it. Vengeance isn't the right word. Vengeance implies you want something back. Justice, balance, whatever. This was annihilation, pure, cold, mathematical. Leonidas's head equals what? They found the Persian baggage train near Plataea. Imagine the scene. Actually, don't imagine it. Let me paint it for you. A serpent of silk and gold stretching across the Greek dirt like something obscene. Tents big enough to house 20 men. Inside, the soft underbelly of Xerxes' empire. Wives, concubines, daughters of satraps. Women who had never, and I mean never, touched anything rougher than rose petals. Their skin smelled like jasmine and myrrh. Their hair was oiled with frankincense that cost more than a Spartan soldier would see in 10 lifetimes. They wore gold on their ankles, their wrists, their throats, emeralds the size of a man's thumb, rubies that looked like drops of frozen blood. And then the Spartans arrived. They didn't look like soldiers. They looked like corpses that had forgotten to stop moving. Their red cloaks, the triborn, were black with dried blood and sweat and dirt. They hadn't bathed in weeks. They stank. A thick animal stench of unwashed crotch and rusted iron and old death. When they tore open those silk tent flaps, the smell collision was almost violent. Jasmine, myrrh, sandalwood, sweat, blood, rot. Imagine being one of those girls, 18, 19, skin soft as peach fuzz. You've spent your entire life being carried on silk cushions, being fed honeyed dates by slaves, being told you are the pinnacle of civilization. And now you're staring into the eyes of a man who eats pig's blood for breakfast and considers a soft bed a moral failing. The Persians expected capture, ransom. That's what civilized people did. But that's the thing about Sparta. They weren't civilized. They looked at these women, these perfumed, pampered, soft-handed women who had probably clapped when news of Leonidas's desecration reached Susa, and they didn't see hostages. They saw Xerxes' ego made flesh, and they were going to carve it out. Wait, hold on. I need to check something here. Right, Plataea, August 479 BC. The battle's over. The ground is a swamp of guts and broken chariots, and men who died with their intestines in their hands. Pausanias, the Spartan commander, a man who would later starve to death in a temple because he got too arrogant, but that's another nightmare entirely. Pausanias walks into Xerxes' abandoned command tent. Gold beds, silver tables, enough wealth to buy Greece twice over. And he laughs. He actually laughs. He orders the captured Persian cooks to prepare a royal feast, all the delicacies, the spiced meats, the honeyed wine, the works. Then he orders his own slaves to prepare a Spartan meal. Black broth, a slab of barley bread hard enough to break teeth, water. He gathers his officers, points at the two tables. Men, he says, I brought you here to show you the folly of the Persians. They live like this. He gestures at the gold and silver and roasted peacock or whatever the fuck. And they came to take our poverty from us. Great line, very cinematic, very Spartan. But Pausanias was lying. because the poverty he was defending was about to get very, very ugly for the women in those tents. They made them march, not a procession, not a dignified transfer of noble captives, a death crawl. These women, and I need you to understand this, these women had feet softer than a baby's ass. They'd never walked on anything rougher than polished marble or thick Persian carpet. Their entire lives they'd been carried, litters, palanquins, slaves with strong backs. Now they were barefoot on Greek limestone, every step a razor. The Spartans didn't slow down. Why would they? A Spartan child learned to walk on these rocks. A Spartan soldier ran miles on them. Pain was just weakness leaving the body, right? When a woman fell, and they fell constantly, their soft feet shredding on the stone, she was a whip, not on the back. That would be too easy, too quick. They'd flick the lash at her ankles, just enough to tear the skin, just enough to make her dance. The soldiers called it the Persian court dance, but that was just the warm-up. The real punishment hadn't even started. They reached the Eurotas River. The women saw the water and something like hope flickered in their chests. Finally, a moment of humanity, a chance to wash the dust and blood from their torn feet, a moment of peace. The Spartans let them walk into the water. They let them start to undress, trying desperately to maintain some shred of modesty, some fragment of who they used to be. And then they threw the bloody tunics at them. Wash. Not themselves, not their own wounds. The Spartans made these noble women, daughters of kings, wives of immortals, women who had never washed so much as their own hands, scrubbed the blood out of Spartan tunics, the gore of their own husbands, their own brothers, their own fathers. The cold river water turned pink, then red, then a deep arterial crimson. Imagine the smell, wet wool, old blood rehydrating, the metallic tang of it mixing with the river mud, and underneath it all, the jasmine and myrrh still clinging to their hair, now turning rancid with sweat and fear. They weren't washing clothes, they were washing away their world. I need you to sit with that image for a second. These women, waist deep in freezing water, fingers blue, scrubbing the last remnants of their old life out of the clothes of the men who had ended it. And the Spartans watched. They leaned on their spears. They didn't smile. Spartans didn't smile. But there was something in their eyes, something cold and satisfied. This wasn't punishment. This was ritual. They were washing the Persian infection out of Greece. The luxury, the softness, the sensuality. They saw it as a disease, something that could rot the iron out of a Spartan soul if they let it get too close. So they treated these women like the source of the plague. Then came the hair. We have to understand something about Persian noble women. Their hair was everything. It was their glory, their status, their identity. It took hours every morning, oils, perfumes, braids woven with gold wire. It was a monument to who they were, to the Spartans. It was a hiding place for lice, one by one, grabbed by the throat, rusted iron shears, the kind they used on sheep, not people. Snip, crunch, scrape. They didn't cut it, they hacked it, jagged, uneven. They kept going until the scalp bled, until the white of bone showed through in places. The sound, God, the sound, hundreds of women screaming. A high, shimmering wall of grief that rose up into the Greek sky and meant absolutely nothing to the men holding the shears. They looked at the piles of black and chestnut hair on the dirt like it was garbage, refuge, waste. They weren't just shaving heads, they were erasing souls. And then it got worse. Wait, I need to be careful here. Some of what I'm about to tell you, historians argue about it. They say it's apocryphal, exaggerated, propaganda. But I've read the fragments, the travelers' accounts, the bits and pieces that survived. And with the Spartans, the crazier it sounds, the more likely it is. There was a girl. We don't have a name. They didn't care about names. But she was young, maybe 16. A daughter of some minor satrap who had the misfortune of being in the wrong tent at the wrong time. She tried to hide a gold ring in her mouth, in her cheek, a tiny thing. A memory of her mother, maybe, or just the last fragment of a life that was being torn away from her. A Spartan officer saw the bulge in her cheek. He didn't ask what it was. He didn't tell her to spit it out. He punched her, broke her jaw, reached into the blood and spit and shattered teeth, and took the ring. Every bruise was a tribute. Every scream was an offering. Is this the part where I tell you they felt bad? They didn't. In the Spartan mind, they weren't being cruel. They were being symmetrical. The Persians had burned the Acropolis, razed temples, desecrated the dead at Thermopylae. So the Spartans would burn something too. Not buildings, not bodies, dignity. They would burn the dignity of the Persian household until there was nothing left but ash and memory and the certain knowledge that you were less than nothing. There's an account, a specific one. And this one sticks in my throat every time I read it. A Spartan officer named Leonidas. He didn't just want these women to march. He didn't just want them to wash clothes or lose their hair. He wanted them broken, completely, irreversibly. He took a group of high-born women to a rocky hillside near Tegea, handed them heavy iron hoes, pointed at the ground. Dig. No water, no shade. The Greek sun beating down like a bronze hammer on an anvil. These women, their hands that had only ever touched silk. Rose water, the smooth skin of a lover. Within an hour, their palms were raw meat. Within 2, the skin was peeling off in strips, white bone glistening underneath. But they couldn't stop. Every time one of them paused just to wipe the sweat from her eyes, just to catch a breath that wasn't full of dust and blood, a whip-bearer would step forward. They call it the dance of the hoe, and they made them keep dancing until their hands were ruined, until something behind their eyes just went out. Let me ask you something. What does it take to break a person? Not kill them. Killing is easy. A sword, a stone, a rope, done. But to break them, to reach inside their chest and pull out whatever makes them human, and leave the rest walking around like a hollow thing. The Spartans knew how, and the food. Jesus Christ, the food. The black broth, melesomos, the most famous and disgusting meal in human history. Pork boiled in blood and vinegar and salt. Even other Greeks who ate some truly horrifying shit, thought it was vile. An Athenian once said, "Now I know why Spartans are so brave. They'd rather die than eat this." And the Spartans made these Persian noble women eat it every single day. If they vomited, and they all vomited, their soft stomachs rejecting the blood and vinegar and whatever the fuck else was in that black sludge, they were made to eat that too. I want you to really think about that. Being forced to eat your own vomit, mixed with pig's blood, while men who looked like they were carved from granite watched you with eyes that held absolutely nothing. It was systematic. Dehumanize, degrade, destroy. The oldest trick in the Book of War. Because if you can convince yourself they're animals, if you can strip away everything that makes them human until all that's left is a broken, hollow thing that barely remembers its own name, then you don't have to feel bad about what you do to them next. Wait, I need to pause here, because there's something I haven't told you yet. Something that even I have trouble saying out loud. The records, the fragmented, half-burned, deliberately obscured records, suggest the Spartans took nearly 3,000 women after Plataea. 3,000. Where did they all go? History forgets them. They become footnotes. The spoils of war. Captives taken. Clean language for something that was anything but clean. But if you listen closely, if you read between the lines of the ancient accounts, if you visit those hillsides near Sparta and stand very still, you can still hear them. The sound of silk tearing. The sound of bare feet on stone. The sound of the black broth splashing into a wooden bowl. The sound of women learning that they were never going home. Sparta didn't take prisoners. It took ghosts in training. Here's the thing about Sparta that most people don't understand. It wasn't a city. It wasn't a culture. It wasn't even really a society in the way we understand the word. It was a factory designed to produce one specific type of human being. A human being who could watch a Persian princess scrub her husband's blood out of his tunic in freezing river water and feel nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, nothing, because feeling was weakness. And Sparta had spent centuries breeding weakness out of its bloodline. A Spartan mother, and this is true, this isn't exaggeration, a Spartan mother would tell her son as he left for war, "Come back with your shield, or on it." She wasn't being poetic, she meant it literally. If her son died in battle, he'd be carried home on his shield, an honorable death. If he ran, if he survived by cowardice, she'd kill him herself, or wish him dead. Same thing. That's the kind of society we're talking about. And those 3,000 women, the ones who survived the march and the shearing and the black broth and the hillside digging, they were given to Spartan households, not as honored guests, not as servants, as something else entirely. The Spartans called them spoils. The women themselves probably had a different word for what they became, but we don't know it, because no one wrote it down. No one wanted to remember Pausanias. Remember him? The commander who laughed at the Persian feast. He eventually got what was coming to him. The Spartans turned on him, accused him of conspiring with Xerxes, of going soft, of being corrupted by all that Persian gold and Persian luxury and Persian. Well, they starved him to death in a temple. He tried to escape. They bricked up the doors. His own mother, supposedly brought the first stone. That's Sparta. That's what they did to their own. So imagine what they did to the women who smelled like jasmine. I've been to the Eurotas River years ago, when I was younger and stupider and thought I wanted to understand history up close. It's cold. Even in summer, it's cold. The water comes down from the mountains and it never really warms up. I stood on the bank and tried to imagine what I've just told you. The women in the water, the bloody tunics, the Spartan guards on the shore, leaning on their spears watching, and I couldn't. My mind just refused, because there's a difference between knowing something happened and feeling it in your bones. And this isn't the kind of history that makes you feel good about humanity. This is the kind of history that makes you understand why the Persians never forgave the Greeks, why Persian gold eventually flooded the Peloponnese and paid for the wars that would tear Greece apart from the inside. Why what started as revenge for Leonidas became a multi-generational blood feud that reshaped the ancient world. Those screams in the Spartan hills, they echoed all the way back to Persepolis, and the Persians listened, and they remembered, and they waited. History likes to pretend this was just a sidebar, a footnote, the unpleasant but necessary aftermath of a glorious victory. It wasn't. You don't humiliate a dynasty's daughters and expect a thank you note. You don't turn noble women into broken things and expect the empire they came from to just forget. The Persians stopped seeing Greeks as rivals after Plataea. They saw rabid dogs that needed to be put down. And eventually, after decades of blood and gold and manipulation, they got what they wanted. Sparta and Athens choked on each other's hate. Greece tore itself apart, and the Persians watched from a safe distance, remembering the sound of their women screaming in Spartan fields. Leonidas was avenged, but at what cost? If you look at what Sparta became, a hollow shell, a tourist attraction for Romans who wanted to watch authentic Spartan boys get whipped at an altar, you have your answer. They won the war, and lost everything that made them human in the process. If you made it this far, I don't know whether to apologize or thank you. This isn't the kind of story that makes you feel good. It's not supposed to. History isn't a comfort blanket. It's a mirror. And sometimes what you see in it makes you want to look away. But here's the thing about looking away. That's what they wanted. The Spartans, the historians who cleaned up the records, everyone who came after and decided that some truths were too ugly to carry forward. They wanted us to forget. And I refuse. If you've got the stomach for real history, not the sanitized version, not the Hollywood version, but the bloody, messy, uncomfortable truth, then hit subscribe. I'm not going to promise it'll be easy, but I can promise I won't look away, and neither should you.